And basically, I was just curious about this hole on my properties.
Well, yeah, we've been there for several years, and we just take all we take all of our trash, rubbish, anything we have that we have to get rid of. We take it, throw it in the hole. Everyone's throwing their stuff in the hole. I got this thinking one day: how come this hole is not filling up? It must be an awfully deep hole. Kind of like yell into it there, to see an echo, and I've never heard an echo come out of that thing. The original line is still down there. I have just been adding to the line and keeping track of how much line I have used.
Well, all right. Now to Eastern Washington. I guess this is Eastern Washington. Mel, are you there?
Yes, I am.
The story of Mel's Hole began late at night on 21st of February 1997. Art Bell opened the phone lines on Coast to Coast AM. For years, listeners had called him with stories of UFOs, ghosts and government secrets. Then came a man calling himself Mel Waters.
I've got Mel on the line. Mel is the guy with the never-ending hole, and we're going to ask him about it.
Mel did not sound frightened. He did not demand to be believed. He simply said he owned land west of Ellensburg, Washington, and on that land was a hole.
Well, the hole has always been there. We've been out there for a couple of years now, and
At first it sounded ordinary. An old well, an abandoned shaft, something left behind and forgotten. But as Art asked questions, Mel's answers became harder to dismiss. No one seemed to know who had made it. No one knew how long it had been there, and despite years of people using it, nobody had ever found the bottom. One phone call had turned a strange feature on private land into a mystery heard across America, and before anybody could decide what to believe, they first had to understand the hole itself. The hole lay somewhere in the hills west of Ellensburg, Washington, away from the town, beyond the main roads, hidden among ranch land, trees and old tracks. From a distance, there was nothing remarkable about it. No building, no machinery, no warning signs, just a dark opening in the earth, roughly 9 feet across.
It's 9 3/4 feet.
9 3/4 feet.
9 feet.
That's the
9
diameter.
9 feet 9 inches in diameter, he said.
The entrance had been lined with stone, as though someone had deliberately built around it.
The surface part of it's been very well cared for. I mean, someone built a very lovely wall around it.
But nobody seemed to know who or why. For generations, local people had simply treated it as a convenient dumping ground. Old tyres, broken furniture, farm waste, anything they wanted gone was pushed over the edge and left to disappear. Yet, however much went in, the hole never seemed to fill. Standing at the edge, Mel could see only darkness. The walls vanished almost immediately beyond the reach of daylight. So he leaned forward, called into the opening.
Is anyone down there?
And waited. No echo returned, no distant impact, no sound at all. Only the wind moving through the trees and an opening beneath him that seemed to swallow everything. How deep was it? And once Mel tried to answer that, the story became far stranger. Mel began with a weight and a length of fishing line. He lowered it into the hole, expecting it to strike rock or water somewhere below. It didn't, so he added more line, then more again.
And so I had a couple of huge fishing reels, went out there and started letting the line down. I figure after one...
Did you weight the line?
Oh, yeah. There's, in fact, the original line is still down there. I have just been adding to the line and keeping track of how much line I have used.
Hundreds of feet became thousands. Reel after reel disappeared into the darkness without the weight ever reaching the bottom.
Well, 5,280 feet is a mile, so you really think you've got 80,000?
Yes, yeah, I get line in 5,000-yard spools.
Yet there was still no impacts, no water, no end. The animals seemed to sense something people could not. Dogs refused to approach the hole. They would stop, pull away from their owners and circle around it, rather than walk near the edge. Then came the story that would become one of the strangest parts of the legend. A local man had thrown his dead dog into the hole. Yeah, just like you do. Sometime later, he claimed...
And he saw the same dog, he had the same collar, he had the same little, little metal thing on his collar there, and he said it was the same dog. And he says he knew he threw the dog into the hole.
As curiosity grew, so did the experiments. People dropped objects into the hole to see what happened. Gold, silver, lifesaver sweets. Nothing offered a clear answer. Mel also spoke of radios behaving strangely near the site, and in one later account he described something rising from the opening at night. A dark column, not smoke, not light, something he called a black beam reaching into the sky. Taken together, those claims transformed the hole from a strange local feature into something far more unsettling. Every attempt to understand it seemed to produce another impossible story. And once those stories reached Art Bell's listeners, Mel's hole no longer belonged to one man in Washington. The legend was beginning to spread. What began as one late-night phone call did not stay on the radio for long. Listeners copied the broadcast, transcripts appeared online, forums filled with people arguing over what Mel had described. Some tried to calculate the depth, others searched maps of central Washington looking for the location that matched his story. The more people searched, the larger the mystery became. Names like Manastash Ridge and Badger Pocket began appearing in theories. Groups travelled into the hills west of Ellensburg, convinced the hole could still be found. Most returned with nothing. A few claimed they had discovered possible locations. None could be proven. By then, Mel's hole had become more than a story told on Coast to Coast AM. It was becoming one of the early internet's great paranormal mysteries. Every retelling adding another layer. Every failed search made the hole seem even harder to reach, and somewhere between the radio recordings and the forum posts and the expeditions into Washington Hills, the story stopped belonging to Mel. The public were not the only ones paying attention. Someone else had taken an interest. They were not joining the search. They already knew exactly where it was. The attention around the hole eventually reached people who were not interested in radio stories or internet theories. Unfamiliar vehicles began appearing near the property, black vans, helicopters overhead. Men he had never seen watching land that had previously attracted almost no attention at all. Then, Mel said, access to the area was cut off.
So they won't let you on your own property, and they're claiming there was a plane that crashed?
Yeah, that was the thing, and I said, well, where's the smoke? I've seen plane crashes before, there's got to be smoke.
A story he believed existed only to keep people awake. What followed was not a dramatic raid, it was something quieter. The land simply stopped being his. He claimed officials offered him a deal.
Did you tell me you were going to Australia? Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yeah, you told me that they had made you an offer for the land, essentially, which was going to be, if I recall correctly, leasing it
in perpetuity.
In perpetuity. In other words, forever, or for your life anyway.
That's exactly.
And so then you were off to Australia with a parcel of money.
I'll tell you, they basically gave me $250,000 a month.
Mel said he accepted and moved to Australia. For a time, the whole disappeared from his life. Then he returned to the United States, and the story became stranger again.
That was the last thing I remembered, because when I had woke up, it was about 12 days later, and I was in a real seedy part of San Francisco, lying in an alley, basically lying in the gutter, no teeth. I could still see the tape on my arms where they had taped down an IV or some sort of thing to it.
His bank accounts had allegedly been frozen, and he could no longer find records showing that he had ever owned the land. No property, no access, no hole. Just a story that now sounded less like a local mystery and more like a cover-up.
Yeah, bloody government.
What are you moaning about now, 85?
They took over my bloody rubbish chute.
Your rubbish chute?
Oh mate, I used to tip all my old spaceship parts down there, perfect setup. Then they fenced the bloody thing off.
Bloody hell, 85, of course I did. Joking aside, this is where the story changes. Until now, we have followed Mel's account. Now, it is time to see where the evidence leads. The first question was not whether Mel's story was true, it was whether any part of it could be checked. Researchers began with the location. Mel had placed the hole somewhere west of Ellensburg, in the hills around Manastas Ridge, so people searched old maps, satellite images and stretches of the land that appeared to match his description. Badger Pocket was suggested. So was land close to Yakima Training Centre. Expeditions travelled into the area looking for an opening roughly 9 feet across, lined with stone and deep enough to match the story. They found abandoned shafts, old wells, natural depressions, but nothing that could be confirmed as Mel's hole. Then investigators turned to the man himself. County property records were searched for land owned by someone named Mel Waters. No clear match appeared, no confirmed tax record, no verified ownership, no document connecting that name to the property he described. That didn't necessarily prove Mel had invented the story. He may have used false name to protect himself, or previous details may have been erased. But it left the investigation without confirmed location and without a confirmed landowner. The physical claims created another problem. Geologists argued that a vertical shaft extending for miles through the earth would be unlikely to remain open. Pressure, heat, and unstable rock should eventually cause the walls to collapse. The fishing line claim was equally difficult. Almost 80,000 feet of ordinary line would place enormous strain on the material long before the weight reached the depth Mel described. An abandoned mine shaft could explain the entrance, but not the impossible measurements. Every trail seemed to end in the same place. Eventually Mel disappeared from the airwaves. No final explanation, no confirmed return to the property, no moment when he revealed who he really was, just silence. Nearly 30 years later, there's still no verified evidence that Mel's hole ever existed. The simplest explanation is that the story was invented or grew far beyond whatever first inspired it. Believe me, I've spent bloody hours searching Google Maps before my girlfriend walked in and asked me why I'd been staring at dirt for 3 hours. But that's when I realised something. Real or fake, no film has ever made me do that. Whatever Mel created, he didn't just tell a story, he made thousands of people go looking for it, including myself. What remains are recordings, a calm voice speaking from the darkness, and a legend asking questions that has hooked people for almost 30 years. So guys, what do you think? Was it real or an elaborate radio hoax? Let me know in the comments, and could you do me a huge favour and hit the subscribe button if you liked this, because there's plenty more of these crazy stories coming your way very soon. So stay curious, my friends. Shane out.